The creature stood tall, his fur matted with the dust of 1,000 battles, blood crusted around the jagged ridges of his armor. He had seen countless species break under the pressure of war. Fear was universal, visible in posture, scent, pupil dilation. But this one, this human, was wrong. It didn't behave like the others. She had been captured in the mountain gorge after her squad fell to the blast traps. A single human survivor, limp from injury but eyes locked on the sky like she expected it to answer her. The Alpha ordered her brought to the central chamber. The pack complied. She had 2 fractured ribs, a deep gash across her thigh, and what looked like a dislocated shoulder. Yet her gaze never faltered. She didn't scream. Not even when one of the warriors tossed her onto the cold slab and bound her limbs. The interrogators asked questions. She remained silent. The alien watched from the corner, golden predator eyes narrowing. He had crushed resistance worlds and burned cities with his claws. Humans had always been chaotic, noisy, desperate things. Emotional. Illogical. But this one was quiet. Focused. She bled from her lip where a gauntlet had struck her, yet she never looked away. Not once. She watched everything. The medic scanned her and clicked a report to the war captain. Severe trauma. Vital signs unstable. Should be unconscious within the hour. They restrained her tighter, activated pulse tension fields to induce discomfort, and left her in isolation. She never spoke. Not to them. Not to herself. There were stories, whispered through the war packs, of humans who didn't break. Some called them feral. Others claimed they lacked fear centers in their brains. Nonsense. The alien didn't believe myths. But as the hours passed, doubt began to surface. He returned to observe again. She hadn't moved. The field still active, pulsing just under her skin. Her fingers twitched occasionally. Her lips were cracked. But her eyes were open, still scanning, still focused. It wasn't defiance. It was calculation. He could see it now. She wasn't waiting for rescue. She was watching for patterns, behaviors, inconsistencies. Gathering data? Like a predator in a cage, deciding where to strike first. The Alpha dismissed concerns. It is only a tactic, he growled. A show of false strength. They are flesh like any other. But even the Alpha didn't step too close. He barked orders from across the room, as if proximity was an unnecessary risk. The alien didn't correct him. But he kept watching. At one point, she started murmuring. A low, rhythmic sound. It wasn't the language their systems recognized. Not a distress call or transmission. She repeated it occasionally, same tone, same pace. Like a chant. The sound made the hairs on the alien's back rise. It didn't feel like prayer. It felt like preparation. She blinked slowly. No fear scent. No despair. No anger. Just focus. The alien remembered a planet where the humans set fire to their own cities rather than surrender. He'd watched them torch forests, bury ammunition caches, detonate bridges with their own men still on them. Their enemies called it madness. But he was beginning to see it differently. It wasn't madness. It was clarity. Brutal, uncompromising clarity. After the 4th hour, the medical logs flagged an anomaly. Neural activity elevated far above tolerance. Adrenaline levels spiked, but heart rate remained steady. Something was wrong. She should be dead or in shock. But her body refused to shut down. They switched to audio probes, recordings of screams, simulated pleas from fellow humans. She didn't react. No eye movement. No muscle tension. The machines detected zero empathetic response. It made no sense. By all biological measures, she wasn't resisting. She was overriding. The alien felt something he hadn't in years. Unease. It curled beneath his ribs and coiled around his spine. Not just because of what she was doing, but because of what she wasn't. She hadn't begged. She hadn't cried. She hadn't even asked why. Predators know other predators. And this one was different. She didn't care about escape. She wasn't trying to survive. She was waiting. The alien turned away from the observation panel as the lights dimmed for the cycle change. Yet even with his back turned, he could feel her eyes, still locked forward, watching, measuring, enduring. Like a blade being forged in silence. The silence hadn't broken. Not once. The alien returned, half expecting a corpse, but found her still breathing. Barely. Her skin had gone pale, lips tinged blue. Cracks ran down her mouth from dehydration, but her eyes remained open, unblinking, watching. Interrogators had changed shifts twice. They used thermal spikes, subsonic pulses, chemical stimuli meant to induce hallucinations. None worked. She didn't speak. She didn't scream. She didn't even tremble. Every reaction was studied, involuntary, mechanical. The longer she resisted, the more unstable the team became. One of the younger enforcers slammed his fist against the wall after she ignored him. He shouted at her in a guttural dialect, demanding answers, threatening mutilation. She never flinched. The outburst earned him a reprimand from the Alpha, but the message was clear: she had gotten under their skin. All of them. When the alien approached again, he noticed something new. Her fingers moved in slow, repetitive motions. A coded rhythm, barely perceptible, but deliberate. Not fidgeting. Intentional. Some form of communication or grounding mechanism. The scanners flagged it as non-random. They tried to jam neural pathways using pulse disruptors. It stopped the motion for 2 seconds. Then resumed exactly where it left off. The Alpha ordered an override of her neural inputs. They injected nanoscramblers to interfere with cortical signals. It triggered convulsions. Her body locked up violently for 10 seconds before she relaxed again. Even after the seizure, her breathing returned to its original pace, controlled, centered. Not once did she ask them to stop. Not once did she show submission. The alien reviewed her biometrics. Her temperature was dropping. Blood pressure dipping into critical zones. Yet her brain remained active. Exceptionally so. It was as if the pain sharpened her. Each measurement defied logic. She wasn't resisting torture. She was moving through it, as though it were background noise. He had seen prisoners beg for death after half this duration. Some had lost their minds entirely, turning feral or catatonic. But this human was intact, mentally precise, emotionally controlled. The longer it went on, the more it seemed like she was not the one losing ground. By the 7th hour, something shifted. The team tried to implant visual stimuli into her optic nerves, images of slaughtered kin, destroyed Earth landmarks, simulations designed to provoke grief. Instead of breaking, she smiled. A thin, cracked grin that lasted only a second, but unmistakable. That 1 second infected the room. The interrogators grew agitated. One began pacing. Another requested to be rotated out. Their voices lost certainty. The alien noticed the subtle tremor in one of their claws while holding the injector. She had reversed the flow of control without moving from the slab. He watched the footage again. Her smile was not madness. It was understanding. She knew something. Not hypothetical, inevitable star. The data confirmed her physical systems were failing, yet her consciousness was sharpening, converging toward a singular certainty. The alien couldn't define it, but it pulled at his instincts. He tried to study her thoughts through a non-invasive neural translator, hoping to catch fragments of intention. But her mental patterns weren't chaotic like most under stress. They were ordered, like military signal bursts. Structured pulses of concentrated memory. Defense mechanisms, yes, but more than that. Purpose-built protocols. As if she trained for this. He requested historical files on human warfare. In their past, soldiers underwent conditioning to resist interrogation. Mental resistance, stress inoculation, scenario adaptation. But this level of fortitude, this clarity under agony, was beyond protocol. This was cultural. Generational. Bred into them. She was no longer an anomaly. She was evidence. When he returned again, alone, he asked her something. Not an order. A question. Why endure this? She looked at him for the first time, not past him, not through him. At him. And for a moment, he felt smaller. She whispered a single word in her language. The translator struggled. It rendered several options. Endurance. Faith. Oath. None quite matched. He didn't ask again. He didn't need to. There was something waiting beyond this room, something she expected. Her endurance wasn't stubbornness. It was timing. She was marking hours. Waiting for alignment. Not just of opportunity, but retribution. The alien no longer felt like a guard or observer. He felt like a witness to something ancient. A force waking inside fragile flesh. Something cold and patient, forged in countless wars humans had never truly lost. And somewhere in the space between her breaths and his questions, he realized she wasn't the prisoner. They were. A new figure arrived, taller, older, marked by ritual scars and ceremonial armor laced with neural amplifiers. The chief interrogator. Where others relied on pain, he wielded precision. No questions. No threats. Just a quiet calculation of her mind's breaking points. His presence changed the room. Even the Alpha deferred. The girl remained motionless. Her muscles twitched from fatigue, but her posture never broke. They began with neurofeedback, isolated emotional triggers tailored from her species' psychological profile. Simulated images of her planet burning, families crying, children screaming. Still nothing. The chief increased frequency depth, injecting synthetic grief. Her heart rate spiked for 2 seconds. Then stabilized. Her eyes didn't water. She blinked once, slowly, like resetting a weapon's sights. He moved to auditory stimulation, voices reconstructed from memory samples. A woman's scream. A brother's voice pleading. Names they couldn't trace. She reacted this time. Not with pain. With laughter. It started low. Hoarse. A dry chuckle from a throat cracked by dehydration. Then a single laugh, sharp, brief, wrong. The interrogator leaned forward. She stared at him, smile wide but cold. Not delusion. Not hysteria. It was mockery. She wasn't confused. She understood exactly what he was doing, and she wasn't impressed. He asked no questions. She broke the silence first. You're out of time. The voice was strained, but calm. Each syllable exact, as if rehearsed. The interrogator paused. The alien watching from the corner noted a pulse change, momentary hesitation. Then she said it again, louder. You're out of time. The Alpha demanded a report. The interrogator gave none. The sensors picked up irregular signals, anomalous magnetic pulses from beyond the atmosphere. Brief. Faint. But not natural. Probes were dispatched. Back in the chamber, the girl's body began to fail. Kidney function dropped. Muscle fibers tore from strain. Still, she spoke again. He's coming. The interrogator demanded context. Who? A fleet? A commander? No answer. She closed her eyes. Not in surrender, but in certainty. She knew something. Not a guess. Not a bluff. A fact. The alien, watching her vitals, saw what should have been terminal readings. Total system collapse imminent. But her brain activity spiked instead of dropping. Like she'd been waiting for this moment to begin. The interrogator shifted to desperation. Full psychic immersion attempted, an illegal method among their kind. The risks were high. He entered her mind through synthetic neural bridging. He was thrown back within 30 seconds. Unconscious. Bleeding from the nose. Neural backlash so intense it fried one of his implants. Medical officers rushed in. The girl never moved. When the Alpha demanded an explanation, no one spoke. The medics couldn't revive the interrogator. His brain was intact, but no longer responsive. Like something inside her had pushed back. For the first time, the alien admitted the truth to himself. She wasn't resisting them. She was waiting for them to exhaust every tool. Every strategy. Every illusion of power. And now that they had, she'd spoken. Not to beg. Not to warn. But to inform. The alien reviewed her words again. You're out of time. He's coming. No fear. Just clarity. Purpose. The pulse signals detected earlier returned, louder now. Rhythmic. Coordinated. A language of positioning. Triangulation. Then it clicked. She wasn't a prisoner. She was an anchor. The girl's resistance wasn't defiance. It was synchronization. She was aligning with something approaching, a presence large enough to breach secure space undetected until now. The probes sent earlier had stopped transmitting. No static. Just silence. The alien's claws tightened unconsciously. He looked at her again. She was still smiling. Everything they had done to her, every hour of agony, was irrelevant to her. Because she knew it would end. She had endured not to win a contest of wills, but to hold a position. Like a beacon in the dark. She hadn't come here to escape. She'd come here to mark the target. And now that the clock had run out, she waited for one last sound. The arrival. The signal hit without warning. Every sensor across the station spiked into red. Shields recalibrated automatically, reacting to something that hadn't been detected entering the system. Orbital perimeter alarms howled in binary, broadcasting alerts without visible contact. No ships. No movement. Just gravity distortion, sharp, immediate, localized. Then came the silence. Not ambient. Not atmospheric. An absolute, enforced quiet that swallowed background hums, machine whirs, even heartbeat monitors. Communication lines failed. Internal comms blanked. The air pressure dipped by fractions, just enough to set every trained instinct on edge. The Alpha roared orders. Troops scrambled to deploy weapons and defenses. Targeting systems failed to acquire any trace. The enemy wasn't there. But it was present. The girl opened her eyes. That same smirk, even weaker now, pulled across cracked lips. She whispered again, but no one had to strain to hear it. Her voice cut through the false silence like a blade. He's here. Outside, light bent. Not visually, gravitationally. The station's external plating vibrated at a subharmonic frequency. Metal memory composites, materials designed to withstand star-core pressure, buckled at the seams. No visible impact. No fire. Just compression. Precision. Like fingers wrapping around a throat. The alien watching her didn't blink. Every nerve in his body urged him to move, to fight, to flee. But the core of him, the primal part, understood what he was feeling. The same thing predators feel when they've just realized they aren't the apex. A single reading appeared. No ship signature. No life form trace. Just a shape, undefined, cloaked in gravitational anomalies. But massive. Fast. Closing. The girl exhaled, chest trembling, eyes focused not on the walls, but something beyond them. No joy. No malice. Only resolution. Suddenly, the command deck fractured. Not from explosives, nothing so crude. The hull simply folded inward like paper under unseen force. Screams echoed through the corridors as artificial gravity inverted for 1.3 seconds, long enough to rupture organs, send armored bodies crashing into ceilings and back down. Then everything snapped back. Except the air was colder. And something was inside now. Internal turrets came online. They fired without target locks. Full autoplasma discharge into the air, walls, corridors, reacting to heat fluctuations they couldn't trace. Within moments, every weapon system went dark. Melted barrels. Fused triggers. Power cores drained to zero. Weapons disabled without being touched. The alien took a step back, still watching the girl. She hadn't moved. Her restraints were still active. But the pulse field around her had collapsed. Not deactivated, destroyed. The emitters sparked, cracked, and died. Her vitals should have been gone hours ago, but now they rose. Heartbeat climbing. Oxygen levels stabilizing. She wasn't healing. She was responding. Boots thundered down the hall. Soldiers poured in, rifles ready, only to find themselves locked in place. Not by force. By instinct. Something had entered behind them. They turned. They dropped. No sound. No scream. Just collapse, silent and clean. The creature, if it could be called that, never showed itself. No eyes. No skin. Only weight. Its presence moved like tidewater, flooding every corridor, stripping electronics of function, crushing armor with focused inertia. It didn't attack. It disabled. With surgical precision. One by one lights died. Not from damage. From submission. They dimmed in its path. Not broken, *eclipsed star. And then came the voice. Not spoken. Not broadcast. It arrived directly into the minds of everyone still conscious. She held. You failed. No anger. No pride. Just declaration. In that moment, the alien understood. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't an extraction. It was punishment. Not for taking her. For testing her. The girl closed her eyes again. Her smile faded. She wasn't celebrating. She was done. Her role complete. Systems across the station shorted. Metal groaned. Floors twisted. It wasn't destruction. It was reclamation. Room by room, structure by structure, the installation became unusable. Not burned. Not bombed. Simply undone. Everything they had built around her was being erased. Not because she fought. Because she endured long enough for something far worse to arrive. And now, there would be no warning for the next. The station no longer responded. Not to commands, not to overrides, not even to basic survival protocols. Life support systems flickered in and out like dying stars. Gravity failed in half the corridors. The other half collapsed inward. Screams had stopped. Those who remained didn't run, they hid. Not out of strategy. Out of instinct. The alien didn't move. Not yet. He watched as the girl, still restrained but entirely in control, opened her eyes one final time. No resistance in her muscles now. No tension. Only calm. She looked around as though confirming a checklist in her mind, then exhaled slowly. Above, the ceiling cracked without impact. Not shattered, peeled. Seamless, clean, with surgical precision. Something beyond the material reached in. The air didn't rush out. It obeyed the pressure of an unseen force. Gravity tilted slightly. Time seemed slower. Every attempt to scan the entity failed. The AI had already purged itself 5 minutes earlier. Its last action was issuing a final, unprompted log, asterisk. This presence is incompatible with machine logic. Asterisk, then it was gone. The Alpha no longer issued commands. He had vanished after attempting to flee to the emergency pod. The pod was found open, pristine, untouched. No trace of life inside. No damage. Just absence. His armor rested on the ground, completely intact, folded neatly. No body. The alien realized something unspoken. This wasn't a battle. This wasn't war. This was judgment. And it wasn't just about her. The girl had never been a threat. She was a key. Not for a weapon. For a message. She was the condition that triggered arrival. And they had triggered it. The voice returned. Not to ears. To minds. You are not feared because of power. You are feared because of your ignorance. The alien felt the weight of those words press against his thoughts. Not violent. Not cruel. But heavy, like truth often is. She showed you your limits. You answered with cruelty. You were measured. The girl blinked, eyes dimming now. Her vitals had stabilized once before, but now they declined again. Naturally. Peacefully. Her role was complete. Her body had nothing left to give. She had never asked for this. She had only endured, knowing that survival wasn't the point. Asterisk lasting long enough asterisk was. The alien knelt beside her. No orders compelled him. No loyalty bound him. Only understanding. He reached toward her bindings. They dissolved before he touched them. No fire. No noise. Just release. She looked at him, barely breathing. He spoke without knowing why. Why didn't you resist? Her voice was nearly gone, barely audible. Because that's what you wanted. A fight. He stared, silence heavy around them. Then she whispered again. You don't deserve one. Her eyes closed. She never opened them again. No alarms blared. No countdowns began. The entity, whatever it was, had no need for spectacle. Every console died. Every system disassembled itself without friction. Not like malfunction. Like obedience. Materials that took decades to forge disintegrated into dust. Every file, every record wiped. No backups. No traces. And yet the girl's body remained untouched. Not preserved. Not enhanced. Left alone. Entire. Untampered. The alien understood then, she was not a martyr. She was a mirror. Everything she endured had reflected who they were. Every decision they made under pressure revealed their truth. And they had failed. Not because she outsmarted them. Not because she overpowered them. Because she never broke, and that forced them to show exactly what they were. A single fragment of her DNA, preserved in light, rose from her chest. The entity claimed it without form or motion. The signal vanished. Everything else stopped. There was no explosion. No collapse. Just the ending of function. And silence. Long after, only fragments remained. A story spoken in the shadows of ruined worlds. Of a girl who never spoke unless it mattered. Who never fought unless it meant something. And who endured not to survive, but to judge. What came for her was not vengeance. Not protection. It was the answer to a question the captors never realized they were asking. How far would a human go, when you tried to break what could not bend? And the universe learned. The ones who don't scream are the ones you should fear most.